In terms of maintaining long-term confidence, one thing I do from time to time when things aren't going well is to just turn all the filters off on my poker income tracker and just look at the entire graph and tell myself, like, what has been going on here since it's felt like forever, but it's actually just a little blip.
Cruising on in for vlog 269, and much like Bill Belichick, I like to think we are strong, coming off a bye. That audio you just heard, Charlie Wilmoth on the Thinking Poker podcast. Charlie does a podcast for Crush Live Poker, which I very much enjoy listening to, but I also do like the Thinking Poker podcast, the times I've had a chance to listen to it, with the exception of the fact that I wish Carlos Welch would learn how to properly pronounce the state of Nevada. It's not Nevada, Carlos. Why can you get that one down? That advice that Charlie mentioned, I actually did do. And not going to lie to you, it did kind of help in what's been a really tough stretch after a June swoon on this vlog. You could say down several thousand for the month of June. So July could not get here fast enough as I drive over to Peppermill looking to jump in a 0-5-10 no limit hold'em game scheduled to start soon. We'd hoped that a week off from the vlog that included hanging out at a Tahoe beach with this girl would help turn the losing streak around. It was a week when the Reno Rodeo was in town. A week when a guy having the week of his life would win a $4,000 pot against a guy who's, I think, having the year of his life. And it was a week following an NHL draft in which one of the top picks was a guy named Ivan Demidov. And if you're like me, then this is the Ivan Demidov that you know. I miss the days where the main event was on ESPN. Anyway, we get a little bit of a late start firing up a 0-5-10 no-limit hold'em game with The Rock on table 1. I jump in the 8th seat for a noon start, and we get a young guy in the game that, when he is sober, I don't want any part of playing against him. He's got like a 25-year-old chess nerd level of strategy combined with an OMC level of patience. That is a tough combination to beat. He actually doubled up on the game's first deal, flopping top set, and being up against top 2. The funny part of this first hand doesn't actually involve him, though he'd be a critical part of the hand. We'd get an under-the-gun limp, and on a week in which I wasn't all that thrilled with the hockey world, given the fact that Jonathan Marchessault, Golden Knights Conn Smythe winner, is now going to Nashville, I'd look down at Wayne Gretzky. I'd raise to 40, middle position 1. The grinder and the hijack, then 3 bets to 125. My immediate plan is to not call this 3-bet if it's back to me. But we get a guy in the big blind, clearly a guy who's kind of just having some fun, taking a shot in a poker game, that would do something that I'm sure plenty of you will have thoughts on in terms of the ruling involved. He slides in $125, and as you can see, because he was in the 5 seat and I was shooting that direction, he slides the money in, keeps his hand on his chips, and then says, you know, actually, I'm all in.
I'll go all in.
Now, this actually would have been really interesting if, before he had taken his hand off of his chips, I had said, I call as well. Then it would have been a whole cluster. But I actually think that he is allowed to do what he did. Some others tried to say that that should have just been a call. I actually do think that that's still one motion, and you're allowed to do it that way if you want. Either way, I fold the pocket 9s, grinder snap calls with pocket queens, and the recreational player here ends up having king-queen offsuit and going bust in a spot where he should have just folded pre-flop, instead decided to go with it, and ended up getting felted. I would then win about 150 in a double board hold'em bomb pot when I had the Robbie, and I kinda flopped quads. Obviously, that's not the case because I would have had to have used both boards to make the quads, but the point is, all of the jacks were accounted for, and I knew where they all were, which is kind of a funny feeling. There are some hands where winning feels like losing, and I present Exhibit A as one of the following. The player who had just gone all in with the king-queen had rebought and opens to 40. I look down at the absolute ideal hand to be holding in this spot. I raise to 125 here. And in my mind, he is 100% going to do either one of two things, and that is go all in or call 125. And I was dumbfounded to watch him somehow find a fold in this spot, and I wanted to go throw up. Damn it. I'd noticed on Instagram that a few friends were playing in the main event on this day, including Reno Grinder and Chad Holloway of Poker News, maybe the most frequent guest on this vlog over the 6 years that we've been doing it. We would then get another bomb pot, and with 175 in, because the game was still not yet full, oddly enough, I'd pick up 10-6 of hearts in the low jack. On the first board, I don't flop anything, but on the second one, I do hit a 10. Given the fact that no one has bet, I figured I could make an attempt to kind of pick up this pot cheaply and make it 45. My only color is Mr. Z in the cutoff. And with 265 in, I still have air on the top, but drill trips on the bottom. I'm first to act here, so I fire 150. He thinks about it for about 10 seconds before ultimately making the call. And with 565 in, we get a 9 and a deuce on the two river cards. Pretty good spot if I'm representing a hand like ace-queen here, trying to get him to lay down a hand in the ballpark of queen-jack. So I'm going to need to make a bet big enough to get him to lay something like that down in my attempt to win the entire pot. So I fire $375. And he actually announces to the table that he thinks that I am doing exactly what I am doing. But despite him having kind of figured me out here, he ultimately decides to still toss his cards into the muck, and I take down the entire pot. This is a mid-session update. I will admit, and I'm not proud of this, that I hate the way your mind will work when you're on a big downswing. Example. I'm sitting on table 5, waiting for the second game to start about a week ago. I'm sitting there doing a Wordle, which, by the way, my streak got snapped at 45 in a row. I was trying to run down Joe DiMaggio, didn't get there. But anyway, I'm sitting there trying to solve this, and I'm kind of looking over at this door, and I see a massive fish walk into the room, one that you probably only see a couple times a month. And he starts to take a couple of steps towards me, and I know one of two things is going to happen. Either A, he's going to turn right and go check in at the counter to get on the list, and that'll probably result in a second game starting, which now will be pretty good. Or B, he's going to turn left and go jump in the $65 nooner tournament. He takes 2 more steps, turns left, and I immediately look down and say, fuck.
Got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town. What the hell's wrong with me? I don't get along with anybody.
Oddly enough, I'd win a smaller amount of money in the bomb pot 30 minutes later, when I turned a king-high flush on one board with nothing on the other, and my $175 bet resulted in another scoop. I would donate about $60 to Mr. Z, futilely hoping that a pair of 7s would hold up, before this hand happened against him. It was my second go-round with pocket 9s on the afternoon. I'd raise to 50 over a limp, and he would call from the cutoff along with the under-the-gun limper. So with 165 in, the board comes out king, deuce, deuce, rainbow, and I check. Mr. Z, not known for his passivity, fires 75 from the cutoff here, and the under-the-gun player goes out. I think I'm just going to be good here too often to throw 9s away on this board. So I slide in the chips, and with 315 in, the turn is the 4 of diamonds. I check again. This time he bets 175. Really felt like a spot where he wanted me to fold. And obviously he's more than capable of bluffing here a lot of the time. So, once again, I make the call. And with 665 in, the river is a jack. I check a third time. Obviously, it was going to be a spot where I was going to have to think about it long and hard if he bet big on the river. But he doesn't. He just checks back. He seemed to think that I was slow playing pocket kings because that's what he asked if I had. I show the nines, and those are good enough anyway, and he mucks his cards. So he would lose that one to me. But he would then bust another player when he was cruising in a bomb pot with 6-4 and made trip sixes on one board, trip fours on the other against a player who had pocket aces. And I'm here to tell you that this player would have been happy to go broke with a lot less than that. Get her out of there. She doesn't want to be in this. But she is back.
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back?
I'm back.
There was a lot of concern in Vlogland for your well-being.
Well,
And you know, did you miss the shenanigans of the poker room?
I might have missed a few of the shenanigans that happens, but there's some I'm glad I lived without.
And we will not discuss those,
No,
but I
sure
think
not.
I know which ones they were.
I just want to say thank you all again so much for making my healing possible, and I'm happy to be back.
You ever get a hand that leaves you stunned? Well, this next one did that to me. It's actually similar to a hand we already saw today, but this one is more stunning. We get a grinder calling 25 under the gun. +1 calls. MP1 defends the rock. And then the low jack, who I don't know anything about, but he seems to be a recreational player, buying in short. His wife's there playing slot machines in the next room. He makes it $130. I am in the hijack with ace king of hearts here. I 4-bet him to 260. Other three guys fold. And I certainly expected that the low jack's last $280 were going to be going into this pot after 3-betting. I figured it was possible he might just call and then shove the flop, but I figured that 90% of the time here, he's going all in, and I'm going to take my shot against him with ace king. Instead, to my astonishment, he finds a fold here. But if you're new to poker, do not play monkey see, monkey do with trying to get recreational players to fold their hand when they only have a little bit of money behind when they've already 3-bet preflop. Do not attempt that. But for some reason here, that's what happened. Equally shocking was not the fact that I would be in the rock in the next hand and would look down at 8 deuce. That's obviously expected. The shocking part would come when I'd actually get 2 streets of value out of flopping top pair with a pair of 8s. And I'd do it against a for-profit player. That I would have thought very unlikely, but I managed to do it here. I'd even win a few more small pots, including one where I actually 3-bet queens and took it down pre-flop before ultimately racking up and booking a win. Wrapping up the vlog here on this 4th of July Thursday. Going to go hang out with my girlfriend Anna and her best friend Sylvie. You've seen her on this channel if you're paying close attention. Anyway, the session ended up being a good one, plus $950. Weird, because, you know, the game didn't actually get going until about an hour later than it normally does. And despite the fact there were 2 very tough players to beat in it, it still ended up being a pretty good lineup in the sense that there's a lot of other guys, for-profit players, break-even types that you see in these games from time to time. And I gotta believe a lot of them are down at the World Series of Poker, which speaks to what I've talked about before, and that is the effect the WSOP has on the games that all of you guys play in across the U.S., often making the games everywhere better due to the lack of grinders in them. And obviously in this session I ran pretty well, didn't get coolered in any spots, managed to win most of the hands I played despite the fact that I didn't play a ton. And let's hope we can start a winning streak here in the month of July. All right, that was fun. I had the chance to hang out with Anna and her bestie Sylvie, and then Sylvie's family, kind of overlooking the entire valley, really, from that location in Sparks, getting a chance to see basically 3 different fireworks shows, all from that one location. Fun stuff on the 4th of July. Got a viewer comment to touch on here in just 1 second, after I remind you that if you're looking to play poker when you're on the go, the most trusted place to play is the High Society Club on Poker Bros. I've been with them now for several years, not one single complaint regarding the trustworthiness and the reliability of that place to play poker. So if you want to get some practice, and we are here talking about practice, I'd recommend that to be the place that you get it when you're on the go, you want to play when you're just hanging around the house or wherever. Poker Bros and the High Society Club. Use the club code and the referral code in the description below. We get a lot of viewer comments. Sometimes we try to bring them into this section of the vlog. And the one that received the most attention in terms of being liked last week, or at least the last time I did a vlog, was from Kettenbach, talking about the recent downswing, saying, "It's all good, buddy. Poker doesn't mean anything. You got a gorgeous girl and healthy son that are often 99% of poker players." Well, obviously, that is true. And at the end of the day, yes, the downswing doesn't mean anything. Losing money at poker doesn't mean anything if I have those other things going for me, which I do. But the fact of the matter is, not a single one of you is watching this vlog right now because of the fact that I've put together a life that involves me having a gorgeous girl and a healthy son. Nobody. You're watching this vlog right now because I have put together 15 consecutive winning years as a poker player. I've done it while keeping a day job as well, which I'd recommend that you do. I think that could be the worst decision a lot of people make, is to just go all in on poker and do nothing else with their lives. Would never recommend that. And I'm here to say that despite this June swoon and a disappointing 2024 so far, we are sure as hell gonna make it 16 in a row.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past and the pettiness.